Hello again. The support that you guys have shown on the last Lidia video, not just that, but the last few videos I've put out is nothing short of overwhelming. Thank you so much for all the nice comments and the feedback that you've been leaving on those last videos. I have tried to respond to everyone, but as you can imagine, it's been incredibly difficult because of how many of you have come in just in the past week or two from the past couple videos I put out. Reading through the comments, though, you've made two things abundantly clear. The first one is that the previous Lidia video helped you guys a lot. There were a ton of comments where you have been saying that you've been stuck, having problems playing her, and that video has really helped you out, and I'm very, very happy to hear that, and it makes me want to make more of these videos. This is the 5th time I've tried recording this one just because I want to make sure that I get it right. The other thing you've made very clear is that you want to see more videos like this, and I'm very happy to oblige. I have more plans for videos like this. The general video I want to put on my channel is supposed to be a mix of entertainment and educational, so hopefully the videos I'm putting out live up to that standard that you guys want from this channel. And if you have any feedback or ideas for more videos like this, please leave them in the comments below. I'm terrible at coming up with ideas, so if you want to see a specific topic covered or a video made about something, please let me know so I can get around to doing that. For a long time, I've been more in the streamer realm, so the YouTube aspect is something that I'm still trying to get a handle on. But if you want to go check that out, my Twitch channel is twitch.tv/Sesujin. It's in the description and in the pinned comment below. When we play Tekken, which isn't all the time because I probably go insane, we play Lidia, we play Yoshimitsu. A lot of the time we'll just play random characters as well if I'm feeling quite bored, so feel free to stop in and say hello if you're interested. Anyway, with that out of the way, this video is going to be centered around Lidia's stances. We're going to be talking mainly about horse stance, but we're going to be applying theory and concepts that are going to go across all of the stances, and of course, like the last video, there will be a gameplay demonstration as well. So I'm going to try my best to not overcomplicate this, and I'm going to start out with the basic concept of the 50-50. And the reason why a lot of you might be having trouble applying the 50-50, I've seen a lot of you guys saying that the 50-50 is quite bad, is because on paper, it is. What do you have? You have 1+2 low, it's -1 on hit, launch, punch, 1 block, and yeah, it's a counter hit launcher, but when it only does 17 damage and it's -1 on hit, that doesn't seem too great, especially when it's locked behind the stance. And then you have the 2 as the mid mix-up, which is really good because it's your heat engager, but it's also -10 on block. You have some other mids as well, like the 3, which you can get floated out of, the 4, which can be sidestepped and launched, and then you have 1, which is more of a utility move to stop jabbing. But overall, when we consider the raw 50-50 on paper, what you get specifically out of the low and the punishable mid makes it so it feels quite bad to apply, and a lot of the time doesn't feel worth it. And taking the raw 50-50 into account, yeah, it is quite bad, and this is why I said in the previous video, a lot of time when you do forward 2, you want to just wait. If you think the opponent's going to do like a down forward 1 or something, a good option is to just back up and whiff punish them, because doing nothing isn't putting yourself in a lot of danger, but when you do the 1+2 or the 1, you are putting yourself in danger. So another way you might be thinking of the horse mix-up that makes it bad for Lidia is that there are multiple options to beat each option you have in the stance. For example, if we do horse 1+2, this option can be beat with crouch block, of course, and then you get launched, or down jab. So you have multiple options to be able to beat this one option, and this also beats 1. So if I do 1 or 1+2, the same options are going to beat multiple moves of mine, and the opponent has multiple ways to be able to avoid it. So it's not just about blocking the mid or the low, but the opponent can also kind of option select a set of moves that Lidia has, and that again is going to make the overall stance and mix-up feel kind of bad. The key to understanding horse stance, and all of Lidia's stances for that matter, is to think about this the other way. Instead of thinking the 1 is going to be beaten by 2 of my opponent's options, instead think the 1 is going to beat multiple of my opponent's options. If I do horse 1 is going to beat jab, and it's going to beat sidestep. This is also the same for 1+2. If I do forward 2 and 1+2, and they do a jab to try interrupting it, then I'm going to get a full counter hit launcher on them. So how does this work? How can you play the mental game to be able to utilize these moves in horse stance more effectively in this manner? Because you might be thinking, oh, well, it's just a guess, you're just making a read, and that's true, but the opponent's going to have tendencies that you're going to be able to figure out by doing forward forward 2. Why is that? The reason why is when you do forward forward 2, the opponent always has to respond in some way, but you don't have to do anything in horse stance. Even if the opponent just stand blocks after you do forward forward 2, that's still a response, because you have two options that beat the opponent's stand blocking. You have 1+2 obviously for the low, but you also have 4, which puts you in wolf stance for another mix-up. So no matter what the opponent does after they block forward forward 2, they are always responding. And the fact that they're always responding means that you are able to get information and better and more effectively apply the mix-up. I made this little chart to show what horse moves win and lose against different options to better illustrate this concept. So let's say, for example, that we are doing forward forward 2, and we notice that the opponent is being very defensive. They're either ducking or they're stand blocking. So I've set this up with the punishes here just to demonstrate this. If we're doing forward forward 2, then we're going to see they're ducking after the forward forward 2, or they're stand guarding. Right, so these are the two options that the opponent is choosing. And if the opponent is choosing these two options, if we go back to the spreadsheet, then we're going to see we have two options that do really well against the opponent doing this. We have horse 4 and horse 3. So if we do forward forward 2, horse 4, now because the stand blocking, we get a non-mix-up. We do it again and they crouch block, we get the guaranteed follow-up, right? So all of a sudden, this move that we can see, oh, it loses to so many things. It loses the jab, down jab, power crush, grab, hop, kick, sidestep, right? Becomes extremely effective because we're using it in a specific situation against a specific opponent with specific tendencies that we've been able to gauge based on how we've been using forward forward 2 to effectively be able to use the move and then apply the wolf mix-up. And we have another option as well. If the opponent is, say, doing down jab as well as the duck and the stand block on occasion, which is another defensive move, then we could do horse 3. Now, it won't beat the stand block, but it's -4, so it's not going to really make a difference, right? And again, just to demonstrate this, I've set the opponent up to do all 3 of these options. And see, if they're stand blocking, not much is going to happen. It's -4, right? But if they duck, then we get guaranteed forward forward 3 for 47 damage. And if they down jab, it's the same thing for 47 damage. So this is going to be a really effective way to be able to break through the opponent's defense. Now, of course, if you start doing this, the opponent might want to jab or power crush because they want to be a little bit more aggressive to stop horse 3 from just being guaranteed. And in that case, horse 1+2. So we demonstrated the jab string before with 1+2, but let me just demonstrate the 3. If they do power crush, then I'm going to lose to it. It's going to trade about even in health, so it's actually not that big of a deal, but it's still not great. Unless, of course, they have a heat engage or power crush. In that case, it's quite bad. But if we think that they might start doing that because they want to be reactionary to how we're applying our horse mix-up, then we have 1+2 to give us full combo on counter hit. And keep in mind as well, you don't have to force these situations. You can, of course, just block and then punish. If they do something like power crush or if they jab, what's the big deal in blocking it, right? It's just waiting until you know how they're going to play against it. So if you get a big opening off of forward forward 2 at some point, and you don't know how they're going to respond afterwards, because they've just eaten a ton of damage for the counter hit, it's fine to just do forward forward 2 and nothing again. Look, see, now the opponent is starting to go more of his defensive style, and now we can start opening up with the 4 or the 3. And you can see how all of a sudden this changes the horse stance mix-up from being just a kind of bad 50-50 to being a really great tool for option selecting the opponent and punishing them for not being more proactive in the defense against the stance. So the main takeaway here is when you're watching back one of your games, so you're thinking about something in the middle of a game, think about what the opponent's doing. How are they responding to forward forward 2? Because again, they have to respond in some way. Even if they're just stand blocking, they have to respond. So what are they doing? Are they stand blocking? Are they crouch blocking? Jab, power crush? Maybe they're just taking the turn because you're blocking so much and they're hop kicking. and then think about what options that you have in horse stance to be able to beat that. Turn that 50-50 from a 50-50 into like an 80-20, because you know that most of the time these moves are going to give you really high reward based on what the opponent's doing, and if you end up guessing wrong by accident, a lot of the time it's not going to be a big deal. And then of course you can delay the attacks, right? So if you really want to wait and see if they're going to crouch, or you think they might, or they're fuzzy ducking, then you can delay the 2, for example, and then catch their fuzzy duck. And that's just another more advanced layer onto the mix-up. But delaying it with Lidia is very, very important, especially if we go into heat. If we go into heat, do forward, 2, we wait a second to see if they're going the heat burst or they're going the arm move, because if they do, then we get a parry, right? And now we're actually able to apply that mix-up into Heaven and Earth. And the reason why this is important is because there are a lot of times where we could transition Heaven and Earth, where if we just mash a button, then we're going to get hit with Power Crush, right? This is typically going to happen more if you're more plus rather than more minus. But even if they delay the armor move as well, this can also be a factor. So by delaying a little bit, that's going to give us our parry against an arm move. It's going to give us kind of an option select, and it's going to allow us to be able to get our mix-up. And even if the opponent does nothing, by delaying it a little bit, we get a bit of an idea on what they're doing. Are they going the Power Crush? Are they going the Fuzzy Duck? And if they try Fuzzy Ducking for the unblockable, then we can punish them with the unblockable, assuming that they, of course, are actually fuzzy ducking, not hard ducking, and they stand up. So again, these are more advanced concepts, but I want to bring them up because it's important to understand the idea of delaying your attacks, of waiting a little bit, maybe not necessarily exiting the stance, but just how this concept applies to all of Lidia's stances. I'll give one more example with Cat as well. So 1-2-2 punish into Cat. The opponent tries to do arm move. If I do my typical mid here, the arm move is going to beat it. And again, if it's a heat engage, you're in for a bad day. But this is why the 3 exists, because if you press 3, you're going to beat the armor move and get your heat engager. If you have a really hard read on the opponent, like they just over and over again keep trying to armor through this when you hit them, that's a lot of damage. So this also comes back to getting a gauge on how your opponent plays. If you know that the opponent doesn't want to deal with the mix-up and they have a tendency to hit a button, do armor move, then you have options to be able to counter hit them and make them pay if you have the right reads. You can also, in this situation, just do low and then again get full combo. That combo was not very good, but you get the point. And so when it comes to Cat stance, this mind game isn't as in-depth as it is in horse stance, because it really comes down to, are they going to stand block? Are they going to crouch block? Are they going to arm move? Are they going to try taking their turn? If they're trying to take their turn, then you have Cat 3, you have Cat 4, and you have Cat 2, 3, 1. More at the wall than anything to be able to stop that. If you think they're going to crouch block, then you mainly have Cat 1. Cat 1 plus 2 is only really good when you're in heat because of the Heaven and Earth transition. Otherwise, it's minus 11 and doesn't do much more than the 1, so it's not great. If they're stand blocking, then you have Cat 4 to be able to apply a real mix-up. And why do I say real mix-up? It's because Cat 4 forces crouch on hit, which means the opponent is not able to armor through any of your attacks. Also important to note that the 1 after Cat 4 hits can only be sidestepped right. So if the opponent is on player 1 side, where they cannot sidestep right because they're in crouch, yeah, that's pretty funny. So if they're on player 2 side, obviously they can sidestep that after the Cat 4, as I'll demonstrate here. But if they're on player 1 side, they cannot sidestep it. So if you're online, basically, good luck. You have to guess. They're probably on player 1 side, but they might not be, and you just don't know. And then just because I haven't talked about, even though it doesn't really pertain to the topic of the video, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Heaven and Earth. Wolf stance, we don't need to bother with because it's just basically a mid-low. There's not much to talk about. But Heaven and Earth is really important because since this is a parry, you can get grabbed out of it. So if the opponent ends up blocking forward 4-2, just as an example, and thinks you're going to go into heaven and earth, then you can get grabbed out of it, which is going to put another aspect into how you apply the horse mix-up. And that's why I've included grabs in this chart. As you can see, everything except horse 4 beats grab. So if you think that they're going to try grabbing you out of heaven and earth, then you can do pretty much anything and you're able to beat it. But this is just going to add another aspect to the mind game. And of course, because pretty much everything that you have isn't punishable anymore when you're in heat, except core circuit forward 1+2 2 and the hell sweep on block. Everything else, if you go in the heaven and earth, it's not punishable. But it also means that if you do, say, hot kick and then go here, you're going to get grabbed. But other than that, heaven and earth, super simple. You have unblockable, which you think of basically as a low. You have the mid, which gives you +6, and you're able to force another mix-up, either down forward 2 or forward 4-2 if you have the execution, or hell sweep. And then you have the mid armor move, which is going to be quite nice after situations like hell sweep. Situations where you're really plus, because that's just going to go right through the armor and hit the opponent, or just if your opponent tries contesting in basically any way and you get the launcher rather than the parry, most of the time the one's going to accomplish that. There are some odd niche situations where you kind of have to use the one, but for all intents and purposes, just think of one as the hard read launcher tool that is going to counter crouch and attack. The unblockable is if they continue standing. Think of it as a low, basically a hell sweep. And then the mid is, as far as I'm concerned, the go-to +6, gives you a frame trap afterwards. And if you have more stacks of heaven and earth, then it allows you to loop your offense quite a bit. That was after a heat burst as well, not even a heat engage. You can get a lot more, and you saw how much damage that did on block. And also keep in mind, if they try taking their turn, again, you got hell sweep that'll counter hit them. You have down forward 2, which will also counter hit them in the full combo, because you can hit confirm this. And that's going to do quite a lot of damage. And then you have forward 2, etc, etc. So now that we've talked about all of that, let's get into our example games. So here's going to be our gameplay example for today. We're going to be skipping around a bit in this just for the sake of time, because this is focused on stances. The scope of the video is stances, and I want to have a focus on that and cut out all of this stuff of this game that doesn't really pertain to that, so you can get the full idea, and I try not to overwhelm you with whatever's going on with the rest of the game. Okay, so scenario number 1 here, where I get information. I do running 3, down back 3, counter hit, right? I do down back 3 again, hit her on the ground. I manually go in the stance. I go in the wolf stance in case she wakes up, so that I'll realign, and then if she ducks, I can get the mid. So I assume that she's going to wake up based on how she played at the beginning of the round, and I try going for the low. She stays on the ground. That gives me an idea that in this situation, she's going to be more defensive. So here's a similar situation as before. I do hop kick, combo drops, I get down back 3, counter hit, and I assume that she's going to stay on the ground because of before. So I sidestep, do up forward 3, but she did wake up, so she blocked it. I did the sidestep to be able to realign so it doesn't whiff, and now we're back to neutral. But this is giving me the idea that she's going to be not just one way when it comes to these situations, but she's going to be a little flexible in how she applies her defense. So here you're going to notice that she does backswing blow. I do down forward 2 because I had just been playing Yoshi today, so I wanted the launcher. I didn't get it, but I'm in stance. So I think because of how she's reacted before, okay, maybe she's going to be a little bit more aggressive, so I want to get that counter hit 4. Instead, she ducks, which is the last thing I expected her to do, but she ducked. She thought it was -15. It's not. This is only -14. So as you can see, even at God of Destruction level, people are still not punishing the 4 correctly, so make sure that you're blocking after it's blocked and don't just do a move. You can get away with a lot here. My punish, unfortunately, doesn't work, and then she punishes it. And so now we're getting into a situation where I'm not quite sure what she's going to do. So I want to throw out forward 2 here, and I believe this is the first time in the set I've done this, just to see how she's going to respond to forward 2. What's her response? Stand blocking. Okay. Again, my punish doesn't work here. God knows why. Okay, so here's enough forward 2. Because I know that she's been a little bit flexible of how she does offense and defense, I want to test her with a 1. She doesn't bite. She stand blocks again. So what do I do immediately afterwards? Forward 2 into 1+2. Reason why, if we go back to before, she's stand blocking. At the same time, I know based on how she's been playing throughout this game that she has a tendency to hit fast buttons. So I want to do the 1+2 instead of the 4, because I think the most likely thing for her to do, if she's going to do anything except stand block, is to jab. So the 4 would lose to that, the 1+2 would beat in counter hit launch, so therefore I think 1+2 is just the better option, so that's why I opt to do here. So here we do round start, sidestep, low parry, get full combo. And then we're going to run and do running 1 into house sweep. And the reason why I do this is because, again, she's been having a tendency to press in these situations, and she hasn't been blocking low. She's very rarely blocked low in this set. That comes back to when I did down forward 2 into 4, and she blocked it. I didn't think it was very likely. I still don't think it's very likely for her to do that, but I do house sweep here. But because of how the situation worked out last time, I don't know what she's going to do, and because she has that heat engage power crush, I don't want to risk getting hit by that, so I just opt to do nothing here. Now I hit forward to counter hit, I go in the stance, and we do the mid. The mid ends up working out perfectly, and then I do running 1 because I want to force her to respond to the mix-up, and she does with duck 2 times. So that's interesting, because she hasn't responded with duck basically all in neutral, but in that specific situation, when I go in the heaven and earth, she ducked twice. Okay, so the nice thing about that is because of how she's defending against that, I don't even have to do the unblockable. Because of how her aggression has been, and because she has a tendency to duck, the unblockable isn't going to get much more than the 2 is because of the plus frames. There's a good chance that she might try to do armor move or something, in which case I can easily counter hit her. But if she ends up ducking the unblockable, then I'm just going to get launched for full combo, so that's not going to be great. So now that I know that, if I go in the heaven and earth, I know 2 is going to be a really great option in the future. So here we're doing forward 2 again, round start, and you can see I did 1+2 again, and she jabbed. She didn't do a full jab string, but she jabbed, and as I said previously, I believe that if she was going to do anything besides block based on how she was playing, it was going to be jab. That's why I did the 1+2. It beats both the stand guard and the jab option. Afterwards, I do forward 2 again, because I think that how I'm applying the 50-50 and how I understand how she's playing against it is very, very strong. I think I know how to apply it better than she knows how to defend it. So I'm doing it. I'm forcing the mix-up. And because I hit here, I think that she's just going to stand block because she has a tendency to do that, or she's going to crouch block because of how many times I've been doing the 1+2, so I choose to do 4. Unfortunately, this is the one time that she armors through it. If I had done the 1+2 again, then it would have gone under it, and I would have been able to get full combo. And this just goes to show, you know, you're not going to be right every single time, and that's fine. It wouldn't make sense if you were right every single time, but as long as the logic is there, then most of the time, you are going to be right, and you are going to make a solid decision. In this scenario, I had a bunch of options. I could have done the 1, I could have done the 2, I could have done the 3 again if we refer to the chart. And then, of course, we have the 1+2, and this would have been the best option to be able to defeat the armor move. But I thought the likelihood of that happening was very low. Perhaps I could have done the 2 because the forward 2 hit, but I just thought it was very unlikely for her to actually do the armor move. Something to keep in mind as well about this situation, if the opponent wasn't Azucena and had a Power Crush Heat Engager, this wouldn't be as big of a deal as it is, because the 4 and the armor move would have traded. It probably still would have been a really good decision. It's only by fact that Azucena has a Power Crush Heat Engager that this becomes bad. So it depends on the opponent that you're playing if this option is going to be good or not. It will make a difference in the decision making, but at the end of the day, was 4 probably a good option instead of the 1+2 based on the fact I had done the 1+2 multiple times? Yeah, and this just, again, shows that you shouldn't get discouraged because you lose one time, it's going to happen. So here, Azucena does a move that's -14, God knows why, and I decided to do 2-2 here instead of the 14 frame punish. Reason why is because I want to force the stance mix-up, because again, I feel more confident about playing the stance mix-up than I think the Azucena knows how to defend against it. So, like I said previously, because she had a tendency to duck here, I choose to just do the 2, because if she ducks the unblockable, then I die. The 2 is still going to give me all of that chip damage, and it's going to give me the +6. Now, with the little bit of meter I have left, I don't have much that I can do. The only thing I can really do is instant while running 1. That's going to burn the rest of my meter. If this hit, then it would give me a guaranteed follow-up. It doesn't. It still does 11 chip damage, which is kind of insane. The other option I could have picked as well is back 1 in the heat dash, but I felt that this was a little bit better given the situation. That's more of an in the moment thing. In reality, back 1 probably would have been better, but either way. So here, after the running 1, we do house sweep, and I choose to go backwards. And the reason why I chose to jump backwards is because I hadn't done it in the set. The Azucena doesn't really have a tendency to jab. I don't think that she's going to rage art. She doesn't have heat burst available, so she can't get me out of the air. And I overall just don't think that she's going to respond to this in a good way. And putting me out in this situation is going to be a lot better because I can approach with Political Storm, 3+4, and Azucena's only approach to is going to be running 3-2, which I can just sidestep. And because we both have rage, it's giving me a good position. I can also do forward 2 from here if I want to. And like I said, because I've been applying that mix-up so well against this opponent, I felt very confident being at this range against the Azucena. The Azucena decides to do backswing blow to try to avoid whatever move I was going to do, and if I hit a button, this would have avoided it, but because I backdashed, I get Rage Art Punish, and that's going to be the game. So that's going to do it for the replay. There were 2 more games in this set that were really intense, but I'm going to not show them for the sake of time. But I hope this gave you an idea on how to apply these concepts to your own games, and how you can think of Lidia's stances, again, particularly horse stance, but all of her stances, and think about the mind games that goes into it, the theory, and how you can better improve the 50-50. If we look back at this one game, I only lost the mix-up twice. One time when she blocked low, which was pretty much the only time in the entire set that she blocked low, and when I did the horse 4, because I had done the 1+2 so many times that I thought she was going to end up crouch blocking or stand blocking, because she had a tendency to do that, and was the only time that she did heat engager. Again, it goes to show that you are going to be wrong sometimes, of course, but the amount of times that I was able to guess right on my 50-50 against a god of destruction should show you that as long as you're applying the mix-up in a smart way, as long as you understand the concepts and the theories behind it, and as long as you are adapting to your opponent, you can make this mix-up very effective and a lot stronger than just a plain kind of mediocre 50-50. So that's going to do it for this video today. Again, I really hope that you found it helpful. I hope that I could live up to the expectations you might have from the last video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I will try my best to get to all of them. If this video ends up blowing up like the last one, then it's going to be quite difficult for me to. If it doesn't, then hey, it's going to be easier for me to answer any questions you might have. If you've gotten to this point in the video and you want more educational videos like this from me, feel free to subscribe. I try to have a mix of educational and entertainment videos. I'm not solely on one or the other. A lot of the videos, like my Guess the Rank series, try to incorporate a little bit of both. So if you like this kind of thing, please feel free to stop by again. Also, again, feel free to stop by my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Sesujin, where we stream Tekken and not Tekken, because Tekken makes me go a little bit insane. But if you want to see more gameplay from me, you can go there and stop by, say hello, watch the VODs, whatever you like to do. Anyway, that's going to be it from me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.